الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين واللعن على أعدائهم أجمعين من عداوتهم إلى قيام يوم الدين. أما بعد فقد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه المجيد والفرقانه الحميد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ولا تحسبن الذين قتلوا في سبيل الله أمواتا بل أحياء عند ربهم يرزقون. صدق الله العلي العظيم وصدق رسوله النبي الأمين الكريم. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي هلت بفنائك. عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزياراتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين لا سيما أبا الفضل العباس وعلي الأكبر.
اللهم صل على محمد.
I recited to you an ayat of the Quran which says وَلَا تَحْسَبْنَ الَّذِينَ قُتِلُوا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ أَمْوَاتًا بَلْ أَحْيَاءٌ عِنْدَ رَبِّهِمْ يُرْزَقُونَ. Do not consider those who are killed in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as dead. بَلْ أَحْيَاءٌ, but they are alive and they are seeking sustenance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, from their Lord. And who could be more alive than Imam Hussain al-Islam himself, who is Sayyid al-Shuhada, the prince of the martyrs, the doyen of the martyrs. There's a hadith from Imam Hassan Askari al-Islam which says there are 5 signs of a moment. There are 5 signs of a moment. And amongst those 5 signs is that a moment reads 51 rakats of prayer daily. 51 rakats. That includes Salatul Layl, Tahajjud, your Nawafil of your Farz, and obviously the 17 rakats of the Wajib prayers. It makes 51 rakats. Imam Hassan Asri said, this is one of the signs of a moment. And the other sign of a moment is that when he prays on turba, on the khaki shifa. The third sign of a moment is that when he recites any surah, he says Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim bil jahr, by open voice, even when you are reciting Dhuhr and Asr. The fourth sign, which the Imam has narrated, is that a moment wears a ring on his right hand. And the fifth sign is that a moment visits the grave of Imam Hussain al-Islam on Arba'in. On Arba'in. People often ask this question, why is it that the amount of people on Ashura are less than the people on Arba'in? The least figure, the smallest figure I have heard of this Arba'in is that it was 8 million people. 8 million. But I've also heard ulama say that the number is actually double that. 16 million people arrived in Karbala for ziyarat of Arba'in. You have heard from the ulama the status of doing the ziyarat of Imam Hussain al-Islam. Ulama have said that doing the ziyarat of Imam Hussain al-Islam, it is equivalent of doing 70 Hajj. 70 Hajj. And those Hajj are maqbool, meaning they have been accepted. Doing one ziyarat of Imam Hussain Islam is equivalent of doing 70 Hajj which have been accepted. This is the status of doing ziyarat of Imam Hussain Islam. I have read in hadith literature the status of doing ziyarat. There are many hadiths which actually tell us what the status of doing ziyarat of Imam Hussain Islam. In some of the hadith literature, it says that if you visit Imam Ali, to the ziyarat of Imam Ali, it is though that you have done the ziyarat of Rasulullah. If you do the ziyarat of Imam Hassan in Jannat al-Baqi, Imam Zain al-Abidin, Imam Muhammad Baqir, Imam Jafar Sadiq alayhi salam, it is equivalent of doing the ziyarat of Rasulullah. Doing the ziyarat of any Imam is like doing the ziyarat of Rasulullah. If you go to Mashhad, Imam Raza Islam, it is like doing the ziyarat of Rasulullah. If you go to Baghdad, in Kazman, if you go to Samara, it is equivalent of doing the ziyarat of Rasulullah. When I read this hadith, it shook me. The hadith is this: Manzoor Hussain. Whoever visits Qabr al-Hussain, who does the ziyarat of Imam Hussain, فَقَدْ زَارَ اللَّهِ فِي أَرْشِهِ. It is as though he has done the ziyarat of Allah in the Arsh. And this is so powerful that it is the equivalent of visiting Allah. If you do the ziyarat of Imam Hussain, it is equivalent of doing the ziyarat of Allah fi arshi, in the arsh. So now you realize why doing the ziyarat, and there are books, thick books written on the merits of doing the ziyarat of Imam Hussain Islam. Today's topic is to do with what happened after the martyrdom of Imam Hussain Islam. And in the next half an hour, 35-40 minutes, I'm going to just talk about some of the events which happened after the martyrdom of Imam Hussain Islam. After the Asr of Asr Yashur, Imam Hussain Islam was martyred. Many things happened, and some of these things are not mentioned in the ordinary majlis. And I feel because it is the Arba'een, and these events are relevant to this particular commemoration, I want to talk about some of the events which are so important to know as well. And the names that I will say to you, these are important names in the sense, in order to understand the history of Karbala and the post-Karbala events, you have to know these names. As you grow up, you will hear these names over and over again. And some people, unfortunately, don't know who these individuals are. So there will be a repetition of the names and also the events which happened. After Imam Hussain was martyred, as you know, Shimr severed the head of Imam Hussain Islam. But during the day of Ashura, you know this, ulama have told you this, is that Imam Hussain Islam, when everybody was martyred, when all the people were martyred, he brought all the bodies back to one tent. But the heads were not decapitated, heads were not severed. Imam Hussain, when they were martyred, brought the bodies back to one tent. After Imam Hussain was martyred, Umar ibn Sa'd, he then told his army that whatever you take from the holy household is yours. So what they did, they took the ring and they cut the finger off Imam Hussain Islam to take the ring. Because what had happened, during the day, Imam Hussein's fingers had become swollen. And he could not take the ring off Imam Hussein's finger. So he cut the finger in order to get to the ring. They also took the trousers of Imam Hussain. And the person who wore them became paralytic. He was bedridden. Also, they took the amama of Imam Hussain Islam, and the person who wore it became mad. These were the events which were happening. The people who took the sword, there was also some Mehdi and Zafran, which was taken from the tents of Imam Hussain. And the people who used this, they were burnt because of the effect and the azab which was happening to these people. Also, there were 3 camels which belonged to Imam Hussain Islam. And when these 3 camels were taken back to Kufa, they were slaughtered and the meat was distributed to the houses of Kufa. 3 camels. And the people, and it's been narrated in books, that the people who ate this meat, it was so bitter that they could not eat this meat. However, when Mukhtar took revenge against the killers of Imam Hussain Islam, he went and asked, which one of you accepted the meat of those camels which were slaughtered and they belonged to Imam Hussain Islam? And anybody who had ate the meat was also killed. So the distribution of the meat and the people who received this meat, they were all killed by Mukhtar. Also, on Sham-e-Ghariba, as you know, the tents were also burnt. And whilst the tents were being burnt, they were also severing the heads of those shuhada who had died during the day. So Umar ibn Sa'd ordered all the heads to be severed from the bodies on Asri Ashur when the tents were being burnt. When they seen that there's one head missing, which was of Ali Asghar, that body of Hazrat Ali Asghar was buried behind the tents. And Umar ibn Sa'd said, I want you, amongst the army, to go into the sand and start looking for any newly dug grave, using your spears to prod the sand to see where the body of Ali Asghar is. Whilst doing this, they found the body, and when somebody put the spear into the sand, the whole body of Ali Asghar came up. You would think that they would spare the body of Ali Asghar, but they didn't. They got the small body of Ali Asghar and they cut the head of Ali Asghar. And this happened on Sham-e-Ghariba. Whilst the ladies were crying, they were also witnessing this as well on Sham-e-Ghariba. The following day, there is no clear indication in history what day this event took place. This is the trampling of the bodies of the Shuhada of Karbala. Whether it was done on Asri Ashur or was it done on the following day. But from what I read, it was more than likely done on the 11th. What happened is that Umar ibn Sa'd told the soldiers that I want 10 of you to trample the bodies which were now in the open. This was on the 11th. He said, I want you to trample the bodies of the Shuhada of Karbala. When I read this, I could not believe this. Imam Hussain Islam, his body was so badly trampled that it says his ribs were broken so bad that they touched the other side of his rib cage. That the bones had become so crushed, it had become like powder. And when this is an event which happened, a alim went to the qabr of Hazrat Abbas al-Islam. And when he seen the actual grave, he said, what I have read in the books, that Hazrat Abbas was so tall, but the grave in comparison is so small. I can't understand the reason. He asked somebody who had been the caretaker of the haram, he said, why is it that the grave of Hazrat Abbas is so small compared to what I have read? He was so tall. He was so tall that when he used to sit on a horse, his feet used to touch the ground. But the grave is so small. He said, when they had trampled the body of Hazrat Abbas, the body was so broken up, this was what was left of it. So the evening of Asr Ashur, of Sham al-Ghariba, what Umar ibn Sa'd did, he decapitated, as you know, Shimr decapitated the head of Imam Hussain Islam, and on the same evening, he sent the head to Kufa. On the same evening. And when Kholi had taken the head back to Kufa, which is 46 miles away, from Karbala to Kufa is 46 miles. And by the time he had reached Kufa, the palace of Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad was closed. The doors had been closed. So he took the head back to his house. And when he had taken the head back to his house, Imam Hussein's holy head, he had placed it in his house. But one of the wives, who was a Mu'minah, she seen light coming from the holy head of Imam Hussain Islam. Then the following day, I don't want to go into too much detail because there's so much ground I need to cover in the next sort of 25 minutes or so. So I'm going to be brief. So the following day, which is now the 11th, in the morning, Kholi now brings the head to Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad. And this is the morning. He is now having his breakfast, Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad. And when Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad receives the head, he starts to prod it with a cane. And also when he touches the holy head of Imam Hussain, one drop of blood drops on his thigh, Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad's thigh. This blood now becomes an azab for him. Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad, this blood becomes a sore. It becomes a wound. And the smell which was coming from this wound, from the blood which had dropped on the thigh of Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad, became so pungent, so bad, that even his own family could not tolerate the smell. So he used to wear strong perfume to overpower this. And when Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad was eventually killed by Ibrahim ibn Maliki Ashtar, Ibrahim killed Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad. But because there are so many bodies in the battleground, the body could not be found. So the way to find this body was by the smell. And when they had found the body, they delivered the head back to Kufa, and then from Kufa it went to Medina. And when the head of Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad and other heads arrived, Mukhtar had told the person who's delivering the head, deliver the head in the morning. The same way that Imam Hussein's head was delivered in the morning when Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad was having his meal. And when Imam Zayn al-Abidin alayhi salam received this head of Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad, he did a sajda and he prayed. And he prayed. 5 years had passed until Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad's head was delivered to Imam Zayn al-Abidin. From 61 Hijri to 66 Hijri, 5 years. During these 5 years, it has been said in the history books that the Bani Hashim, the family of Bani Hashim, they did not cook anything in their houses. And the term used, there was never fire or smoke rising from their household. That indicates that they never cooked. They never combed their hair. They never put surma in their eyes until the head of Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad was delivered to Imam Zayn al-Abidin. Then the family of the Ahlul Bayt, on the 11th, after Umar ibn Sa'd had buried his soldiers, this is the following day now, after Ashura, he buried his soldiers, and then after Zuhr, he left towards Kufa. Umar ibn Sa'd, on the 11th, after Zuhr, after burying his dead, and leaving the shuhada of the Ahlul Bayt and the companions on the sands, he left. And by the time he reached Kufa, it was again in the evening of the 11th. Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad was given information that Umar ibn Sa'd is now arriving in Kufa. He said, I don't want Umar ibn Sa'd to enter Kufa today. Wait for the following day, for the 12th, because I want to decorate Kufa. I want people to come out and to see this revolters, according to him, to be paraded through the bazaar, to be paraded through the streets, and everybody to see what is happening to the family of Rasulullah. So the following day on the 12th, people are told that they can come out and see this. But he also told them that I want nobody with swords. He knew that maybe there is a chance that these people of Kufa might revolt against me. So when the morning came of the 12th, they entered. They were being paraded. They had no veils. They were in chains. About 40 camels carrying the Holy Family came into Kufa. Some of the people of Kufa didn't know who these people were. And some did. And some did. And when Sayyidah Zainab entered, and also Sayyidah Kulthum and all the other family, people were throwing dates and bread, feeling sorry for them. And Sayyidah Kulthum says that, O people of Kufa, alayna, upon us is haram, sadaqah is haram upon us. And when the children of the family of Ahlul Bayt were picking these dates up, Kulthum was taking the dates back off their hands and throwing them away. Because the Sayyids, and upon them, sadaqah is haram. And when they had entered into the palace of Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad, Sayyidah Zainab Salamullah alayha, she recited a khutbah. There are many khutbahs which Sayyidah Zainab, Sayyidah Kulthum, Sayyidah Sakina, Imam Zain al-Abidin recited at different events. But just at the beginning of this khutbah, Sayyidah Zainab Salamullah alayha says, Alhamdulillah, wassalatu ala Abi Muhammad. Praise be to Allah and salutations upon my father Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And when people heard this, to say my father Rasulullah, and they're claiming to be Muslims, that shook people. That shook people. And when Sayyidah Zainab was giving the khutbah, there were people who had heard Mawla Ali giving khutbahs as well in Masjid Kufa. And the voice, the style, the delivery was all as though Mawla Ali himself is delivering the khutbah. And one companion of Mawla Ali was saying, is Ali back from the dead? He said, no, it is the daughter of Imam Ali. One thing which I made a comparison is that this khutbah of Sayyidah Zainab Sallallahu Alayha, she says, As-salatu Abi Muhammad, meaning salutations upon my father Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. If you read the khutbah of Fadaqiyya, the khutbah of Fadaq, in that khutbah, Sayyidah Fatimah Zahra Sallallahu Alayha, in front of Abu Bakr and his cronies, she says, I'lamu anni Fatima wa Abi Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. In this khutbah she says, be known that I am Fatima. She says this, Sayyidah Fatimah Zahra Sallallahu Alayha, and be it known that my father is Rasulullah Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And she's saying this in front of the companions, meaning that the relationship of the family is so powerful, and this relationship actually changed the whole of the Muslim mindset after Karbala. The family of the Ahlul Bayt were kept in prison for about 7 days in Kufa. What happened? Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad sent a message to Yazid in Damascus, asking him, what do you want us to do with his family? I personally think, and most scholars are of the same opinion, had Umar ibn Sa'd or Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad sent the family back from Karbala back to Medina, or from Kufa back to Medina, the whole of the history of Karbala would have been different. And this is no exaggeration. The whole of the history of Karbala would have been different. But what happened is that, and Imam Hussain knew this. He knew this, that they would not send the Holy Family back again. Imam Hussain knew that they would be paraded through the different cities. And maybe you have heard this, and maybe you haven't. The route which was taken by Shimr to Damascus was not the direct route. It wasn't the direct route. It could have been in a straight line. But the route is so strange. But not strange when you read into history what the purpose of this was. He sent the Qafla from Kufa towards Mosul, which is northern Iraq. And from northern Iraq, it went into Turkey. It went into what is southern Turkey. From Turkey, it came back into Lebanon. From Lebanon into Damascus. It was a very, very long route. And what happened, that some of these cities who knew the family of Ahlul Bayt, they refused the army of Shimr, of Yazid, to enter into the city. But one event which happened, and this happened in Mosul, according to some of the history books, that the head of Imam Hussain was placed on a rock, and a blood drop fell onto that rock, and when the Qafla of Imam Hussain had moved on, this stone started to weep blood. And every year on Muharram, this rock used to weep blood. Fresh blood used to come out, and it used to gush out. And what they did in the time of Abdul Malik ibn Marwan, he said this stone should be hid, should be concealed. And this is mentioned in history books about Abdul ibn Marwan, that he said that this stone should be hid. But this stone was found again. And this stone, especially the young brothers here, you have not visited Halb. And this stone is the same stone which is in Halb today. This stone still bleeds and it shows blood on different occasions. And it's actually on the internet. If you go onto the internet and just put in and type in the miracle of Imam Hussain, you will find a clip where this stone is weeping blood. This stone is weeping blood. And this is one of the living miracles which happened during the time of the journey and also afterwards. When they had reached Damascus, they were kept outside of the main doors for 3 days. Why? It's because when Yazid had realized that this Qafla had reached Damascus, he wanted to decorate the city. He wanted the people to have this party, this carnival. That this revolting group, people had revolted against Yazid, had now been subjugated. They have been broken. But I have about 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and I want to say a lot more. So I'm going to go through things very quickly. One thing you have to bear in mind, just think about this for a few minutes. When you have your own sons killed, when you have your own brothers killed, when you have them paraded through the cities of Iraq, Turkey, Lebanon, Damascus, Syria, you become broken. You become broken. But the amazing thing is this, that maybe they broke them physically. They broke the family of the Ahlul Bayt physically, but they could not break them spiritually. Because every place they went, they gave the khutbahs, they introduced themselves who we were. And when Imam Zain al-Abidin came into Damascus, this old man said to Imam Zain al-Abidin, he said, "May Allah thank us that He has delivered us from you and your father, who you revolted against the Amir," meaning Yazid. Imam Zain al-Abidin said, "O Sheikh, have you read the Quran?" He said, "Yes." He said, "Have you read the ayat, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, قُلْ لَا أَسْأَلُكُمْ عَلَيْهِ أَجْرًا إِلَّا الْمَوَدَّةَ فِي الْقُرْبَى?" He said, "Yes." He said, "We are that qurba. We are those for whom Allah is demanding our love. We are that family." He said, "Sheikh, have you heard or have you read also this ayat in the Quran, وَآتِ ذَا الْقُرْبَ حَقَّهُ," meaning, Rasulullah, give the rights of your close ones, meaning your Ahlul Bayt. He said, we are those people whom Allah has demanded that Rasulullah gives us our rights. وَآتِ ذَا الْقُرْبَ حَقَّهُ. He said, yes, I have read this. He said, we are that Zal Qurba. We are those individuals who are the Qurba. He said also, have you also read in the Quran, وَعْلَمُوا أَنَّمَا غَنِمْتُم مِّن شَيْءٍ فَأَنَّ لِلَّهِ خُمُسَهُ وَلِرَسُولِهِ وَلِذِي الْقُرْبَى وَالْيَتَامَى وَالْمَسَاكِينِ وَابْنِ السَّبِيلِ. He said, have you also read this? That Allah has demanded that any profits that you earn, 1/5 goes to Allah, to Rasul, Zil Qurba, Wal Yatama, Wal Masakin, Wal Sabil. He said, yes. He said, we are those people who Allah has ordained that 20% of your earned livings goes to us. He said, finally, have you also read this in the Quran? إِنَّمَا يُرِيدُ اللَّهُ لِيُذْهِبَ عَنْكُمُ الرِّجْسَ أَهْلَ الْبَيْتِ وَيُطَهِّرَكُمْ تَطْهِيرًا. He said, yes. He said, we are that family. We are that family who Allah has purified. He broke down in tears. He said, I did not know that you were this family. And this, over time, became one of the reasons why Yazid had to release the family of the Ahlul Bayt. Another thing which, Ash'ar, a poem which has been narrated by Sheikh Abbas Qummi in Nafs al-Mahmoom. And I'll give you the translation. And the word itself is so powerful. The word is, and I'll translate it afterwards. The word is Banatul Wahi, meaning the daughters of revelation. And it says the daughters of revelation. This word itself is only two. Banatul Wahi, the daughters of revelation. What that means is that this family is a family upon whom revelation descended. And it continues by saying that Banat al-Wahi, the daughters of revelation, are standing in front of Yazid. Yazid is a tulaqa, taliq, meaning that he is the freed slave, our family. Yazid and his father, Yazid's grandfather, he is our slave whom we have freed. And you have in front of a slave standing Banatul Wahi. Banatul Wahi. The daughters of revelation are standing in front of their slave who is now in control. And you are crying. People were crying in this. I quickly want to go on to another related item. Is that why was it they were released? There's a question which is often asked. And it's not because Yazid had any sympathy for the family of the Ahlul Bayt. what happened is that people began to realize who these individuals were, who this holy family was. And people started to talk. The women started to talk. Yazid became very conscious of what was going on. He knew that keeping this family in prison is going to be a liability, is going to be a danger for him. So what he did, he released them. Not because he had any sympathy, because he was forced to. Had he kept the family of Ahlul Bayt in prison in Damascus, there would have been a revolution in Damascus, because the people were becoming aware of what was happening. So they were released. Instead of going straight from Damascus, they did a detour. They went to Karbala first. And whether it was the first Arba'in, meaning 61 Hijri, or 62 Hijri, that's another debate. Whether it was the first Arba'in or the second Arba'in. But we all know from history sources that it was on Arba'in that this family of Rasulullah arrived in Karbala. They stayed in Karbala for 3 days. And they met Jabir bin Abdullah Ansari there. And again, I'm not going into details because there's another event I want to talk about as well. They left Karbala after 3 days. They came back to Medina. They stayed just outside of Medina and told the people of Medina that Bani Hashim, Rasulullah's family, have now arrived. So everybody went to outside Medina to give the pursa, to give condolences. And they were wailing, they were crying that this family of Rasulullah had been put under so much pain and suffering that how can this family face Rasulullah? We had taken Hussain with us, but we bring back no Hussain. This very Hussain who was the center for the people of Medina. So they condoled with Imam Zain al-Abidin. What now happens is what is so also important in understanding post-Karbala, the events which happened after Karbala. The people of Medina, and this is something which I want you to remember. There's many things I've said, but remember this. When Imam Hussain al-Islam left Medina, when Muawiyah died and Yazid was put into power, Medina had accepted Yazid. Medina had accepted Yazid as their Amir. And Imam Hussain al-Islam refused when he was invited to Walid's palace. Imam said, person like me cannot do bayat to a person like him. Imam Hussain left Medina, but the people of Medina had done bayat of Yazid. This is very important to remember. When they had come back after Karbala, back to Medina, they sent a group of people, the people of Medina. They sent a group of people to go back to Damascus and find out what type of person Yazid is. They came back, and the leader of this group was Abdullah Hanzala. Hanzala was one of the companions of Rasulullah. And Abdullah Hanzala, he said that Yazid is a drunkard. He plays with monkeys, he has dancing girls, he doesn't pray, he has all the bad things that you have heard over history. They then broke the bay'ah. What does bay'ah mean? Is the allegiance. They broke the allegiance. The people of Medina now broke the allegiance to Yazid. Yazid now sends an army from Damascus of 12,000 soldiers. 12,000 soldiers are now sent to do what? To ransack Medina, to kill the people of Medina. When the army arrives just on the outskirts of Medina, it's a place called Hurra, just on the borders of Medina. And the people of Medina realized that Muslim ibn Uqba, with his army, has come to ransack and to kill the people of Medina. Why? Because they had broken the allegiance to Yazid. There's a battle in Hurra. It's a famous battle, but not very often mentioned on Sunni, I have to say this, on Sunni stations. And there's a whole reason why there's some silence on these issues. They fought in this battle. The people of Medina lost. They lost this battle. These army of Yazid were given orders that whatever you do in Medina for 3 days you can do. You can rape the women, you can kill the women, you can do whatever you like for 3 days in Medina. And what they did, they tied horses in Masjid al-Nabawi. In one book I read, it says they actually drank alcohol in Masjid al-Nabawi. They had dogs, Mazallah, in Masjid al-Nabawi. They killed the companions of Rasulullah in Medina. They also killed those who Hafiz of the Quran in Medina. They also killed the women and children in Medina. And the figure is, they killed 10,000 people in Medina. 10,000. But the point which really got my heart and made me think of the people of Medina is that when Muslim ibn Uqba stayed there, he forced the people of Medina not to just do bayat. This is the important point. It wasn't to do the bayat again. It wasn't a bayat again. Muslim ibn Uqba and Yazid's army, what they now demanded is that you Muslims, women, children and men, are now slaves. It wasn't a bayat now. A bayat is that you just claim that whatever the ruler does you accept. But now they were being forced into slavery. They had to do the bayat on becoming the slaves of Yazid. And those individuals who refused to do the bayat, not the bayat of just accepting him, but becoming slaves, they were also killed. They were also killed. There's many things which I can talk about and continue, but I'm aware of the time. I've gone 5 minutes over, but I'll just finish on a couple of more points, and inshallah, next 2 or 3 minutes I'll finish. When they left, they stayed in Medina until they were sure that these people have been totally suppressed. Muslim ibn Uqba, the leader of the army of Yazid, dies. They move on towards where? Makkah. Under the leadership of the killer of Ali Akbar, Hussain ibn Namir. And when they reach Makkah, Abdullah ibn Zubair is now the self-appointed Khalifa of Makkah. And with them, they also have, do you know what catapults are? Yeah. Catapults. Manjik. Catapults are used in warfare during that time to throw fireballs, burning fireballs, rock. And they did this on the Kaaba. They burnt the Kaaba, they desecrated the Kaaba through throwing fireballs. One thing which I have been thinking about is that when Abraha came to destroy the Kaaba, Ababil came. Why is it that when Yazid's army came to Makkah, they burnt the Kaaba? They desecrated the Kaaba. There was no azab min as-sama, from the heavens. You can only speculate, you can only say this. Maybe the killing of Imam Hussain al-Islam was like killing Rasulullah. And Allah said, you have killed Rasulullah. You did not protect Rasulullah, meaning Imam Hussain al-Islam. There should be no protection for the Muslims. There should be no protection. And maybe the people of Medina, and I'm very cautious when I say this, maybe this was also to teach the people of Medina, your loyalty to the family of Ahlul Bayt, to the family of Imam Hussain, was not what it should be. You claim to be the Ansar Allah, meaning the helpers of Allah, the Ansar. You claim to give sanctity to Rasulullah when he left Makkah. Why could you not give sanctity and protection to the family of the holy household? ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم.